welcome to another journey brought to you by BMG Partners. My name is Matt Griffith, and joining me today is the president of the Albury Wodonga Chrysler Club, Rod Taylor. G'day, Rod.
G'day, Matt. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's really exciting to talk to you. I can't wait to learn the history of what's turned into one of the most extraordinary events on the border and in our region, which is, of course, Chryslers on the Murray. But we'll get to that a little bit later on, because first, as we always like to do on a journey, we want to find out your background and connection to our region. So were you born and bred here, Rod?
Born and bred in Hinty, halfway between Wagga and Albury. Had a bit of a early grounding in organising through my father, Milton Taylor, and Cole Wood and a few others started the Hinty Machinery Field Days.
Get out!
Yeah, so I grew up with all that.
That's extraordinary, because, I mean, that is the thing that everyone...
Oh, it's huge.
As soon as someone mentions Henty, of course, you go, the Field Days. So your dad actually was part of the organising committee for the Henty Machinery Field Days?
Committee, yeah.
Wow. So how old were you when that kicked off?
I was only young. I would have only been 7 or 8 at that stage when the first one, a little property called Carlu, near Colcan, between Hinty and Colcan.
Yeah. So farmers?
Yes.
Obviously?
All farmers, yeah. We grew up on a farm, 3 older brothers.
Yeah. God, that must have been a fun childhood.
It was always plenty to do, yeah. Go out and go rabbiting or do something, yeah.
Yeah. Were you working, from a fairly young age on the farm, or did you get to muck around?
Oh, we did, but when Dad was young, he was there was an accident where his cousin got killed. So he was very strict on us being around machinery.
Right.
Understandably so.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you were eight years of age when your dad started the Henty Machinery Field Days. Give us an idea, give us some recollections of that initial period, because that as well has obviously turned into such an incredible event.
There's always a lot of meetings and a hell of a lot of work, because it was always volunteers, of course. And they just kept trying to improve it all the time. And then they finally got the Crown land where it is now, and they could really bolster things and build permanent buildings, and it took off really well from there.
Yeah. And I'm kind of guessing your father's probably passed away.
He's passed, he passed away last year, actually.
Was he proud of what it all became?
Yeah, very proud of Hinty. There's a lot of good community spirit out there, that's for sure. There's all sorts of committees out there, so you sort of grew up amongst all that, and was showing the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So did your mum and dad stay in Henty throughout their lives?
Yep.
Yeah.
Moved into town when they retired off the farm, and Mum's in a nursing home now, and Dad passed away last year. So they had a good run.
That is an incredible story, though. Yeah. That's amazing. And so, did you? When did you move out of Henty? What did you get up to after your initial schooling period?
Yeah, I actually did an apprenticeship. I came into Albury in about 1979. Did an apprenticeship with Convair Chrysler, of course, and probably that's where it all started there. 4 years, worked 8 years there, and been in the Albury Wodonga area for about 35 years now.
Yeah, never thought of leaving for the city. Often we talk to people who've been either started life in the city in Melbourne or Sydney or wherever, or had an experience down there, but not for you.
No, I just loved this area. It's fantastic.
Yeah. How do you feel when you go down to Melbourne?
Well,
I was actually to get out.
I was actually down in Melbourne last weekend to a very big car show, and it was so regimented, and everything was a bun fight to get around, and the traffic was travelling at 30. We hit Melbourne at 5 o'clock Friday. All you can think is, the best thing about Melbourne is the road coming out.
Agreed. It's funny. I grew up in the city largely, so I came out from England when I was 8 and moved to Adelaide. Not the biggest city in the world, but still a fair size city. I've lived in Sydney and Brisbane as well. And I often say to people that when you move to a place like Albury Wodonga, it slowly seeps into you, the pace of life, the fresh air, the country experience. And now, like you, I'm just like, I just cannot wait to get out of a city when I'm there. And as soon as I hit the Hume and you're on the outskirts of Melbourne and you're heading home, it's like sweet relief, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all right to go down there, maybe go to the footy or do something else, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
about it.
So your love of cars, did that start early?
Yeah, Dad actually was a real car. He loved cars as well, but he was a real Ford man. And we always had Galaxies and LTDs and Fairlanes growing up. So, Dad certainly passed that bit on to me.
Yeah. And did you always know that you wanted to work with machinery?
Well, I did after leaving school, I did a pre-apprenticeship course. It was actually the first pre-apprenticeship course they ever did at Albury. And it was you had a choice. You did half electrical and half mechanical, and electrical didn't really do it for me, unfortunately. It would have been better off now, but so I did the pre-apprenticeship course and then got the apprenticeship at Convair's, and that actually got me the apprenticeship because there was about 100 applied for the job.
Right.
So I was very fortunate there.
Yeah. And did you know instantly that was where you wanted to be?
Yes, it was enjoyable.
Yeah. And at that time, did you fall in love with Chryslers straight away, or was that something that took time to nurture?
Yeah, pretty much. One of the third-year apprentices had an RT Charger, so it didn't take long to fall in love with them.
Yeah. And of course, the passion back then, and unfortunately, there's still a lot of people around that can remember the days of being passionate about Aussie cars and the tribalism around it.
Yes.
Obviously, it's more Ford Holden traditionally, but still there were so many people passionate about Chryslers and Valiants and the like as well. It's sad what's happened, really, isn't it? Because we don't have that passion or the ability to be passionate about local.
Yeah, I think that's
cars.
disappearing because there's no manufacturing in Australia now. But Chrysler was always the underdog, so you had to have a thick skin.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all right. We used to think that kept the people that were fair income in the club sort of thing. Yeah.
Did your mates have Holdens and Fords and things? As you said, your dad was a Ford man, was he?
Yeah, Dad was a Ford man, but no, all my mates were all Chrysler guys actually. We used to stick together in our own little band. Yeah.
It was so funny because I was a Ford, still am a Ford man. But I, as I said, grew up in Adelaide from when I was 8, and of course that's where they had the home of Chrysler and Mitsubishi down at Torrens, which was the old factory. But it was quite extraordinary that we had so many different manufacturers building cars in Australia, wasn't it?
I think when they closed down the automotive industry, you de-skill the country doing that, because there's all the vendors that supply, and then the vendors that supply the vendors, and it just goes down the chain. Yeah.
So what was your role?
I was a mechanic and then ended up being service manager there. Yeah, at the end after 8 years.
Yeah. And then when did you buy your first Chrysler?
18. Yeah.
What was it? Do you remember?
It was a Charger, of course, the one with all the triple Webers on it and the real hot engine, of course.
So that was pretty good. At 18 to have the money to...
I borrowed the money, but I could only get a loan because I had a 4-year apprenticeship. That really...
Gotcha. Yeah. Because I would imagine a few of your mates would have been looking enviously at a car like that.
Things were... Well, of course, they weren't, dear as they are now. They were, you paid $2,000 at most for a really good car back then. And we drove them too. We drove them hard because we just go and get another one if that one broke. So not like today.
It's a very different world, wasn't it?
Very pampered now.
Yeah. And talk to me about the start of the club, and we're going to talk obviously a little bit more about Chryslers on the Murray coming up, but tell us about the club and your start in the Albury Wodonga
there was another
Chrysler
gentleman
Club.
who suggested that we start a Chrysler Club, and because we knew all the Chrysler people in town basically at that stage. So about 6 of us got together and started the Albury Wodonga Chrysler Club. And at that time there was a little Chrysler show in Shepparton and another one in Canberra and a bigger one in Sydney, and so we thought we better have our own one as well. So 2 years later, we started the first Chryslers on the Murray.
Yeah, so that was in the...
91 or 92.
91, 92.
I never remember.
Yeah. So by that time, obviously, Chrysler had basically wrapped up in Australia and had morphed into Mitsubishi. So was there no club while no club in the region while Chrysler was making cars, basically.
No, Chrysler actually finished in 82.
Yeah.
Yeah, and swapped over to Mitsubishi.
Yeah, yeah. So even at that stage, it was to kind of to honour the cars that had disappeared from Aussie roads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you still got what happened to that original car that you had?
Sold it to my best friend, and then he sold to another guy, and who moved to the coast, but he's actually back in town now. The car's back here.
The car's still around?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's brilliant, because it'd be
fixed up and restored,
fair few that would have been written off or off the road for various different reasons, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you started the club back in the early 90s, did you ever for even 1 second think that you would have an event like that?
Never, ever. The first year we had 60 cars, and I can remember personally spending about 2 weeks on the phone before ringing people, begging them to come along. That was at Hoveltree Reserve.
Yeah. So currently, how many cars do you own?
I own 4.
4 Chryslers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has your love of the cars, and because one thing I absolutely know about people that love classic cars and are involved in that area is they're not cheap, and there's a lot of resources that has to go into it. In terms of the impact on your family and the like, they've always been supportive, have they, Rod? Of your
yeah, my wife's been very supportive, luckily. Yeah.
Is she a car person?
Well, she sort of has. Well, she does a lot of. She does an awful lot of administration now. So in fact, the show wouldn't run without her, and a lot of other really good members, of course. But yeah, when you're having kids and everything, and you're buying a house, I actually had another really good car I sold to buy a house, and so yeah, when the kids were young and you didn't have the time or the money, so that all got put on the back burner to some degree.
Yeah,
and then as things loosened up later on.
And what's your wife's name?
Jenny.
Jenny. So where did you meet Jenny, and was she a part of the car culture?
No. I just met Jenny at one of my mutual friends' wedding, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that worked out really well. Hit it off straight away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she liked the Charger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She had no problems there. Unfortunately, that one we had at that stage had to get sold, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you were just touching on it then, the amount of work that goes into clubs and the administration, because we often obviously just see the results of whatever's been put together, and in this case, Chryslers on the Murray, which is an extraordinary event, but it does take a hell of a lot of work, doesn't it?
A lot of work, and it cost us about $120,000 to put the show on this year.
God.
Yeah, so you got to run it because it's so big. It's got to be run like a business, effectively.
Yeah. So where was that first one? Talk us through the first Chryslers on the Murray.
First Chryslers on the Murray was 60 cars at Hoveltree. The next year we had 80. The next year was about 110. The next year 140. I think we did 6 years at Hoveltree, and then we couldn't physically fit there anymore.
Yeah.
So then we went to Oddys Creek, and that's before the park was built there.
Yeah.
And we spent 2 years there and then outgrew that. And then Wodonga Council approached us to go to the just recently developed Gateway Lakes. So we said, no worries, we'll go there. It was a bigger spot. But unfortunately, that was when the drought was on, and the grass just didn't grow good enough, So we ended up at Assumption Gardens for 2 years. And then we got eventually after 2 years, the grass cover was good, so we went back to Gateway Lakes.
Yeah, and now it's just it's a perfect spot for it too.
It's a great venue.
So that first one in the early 90s, when you got the 60 cars, did you have anything planned? Was it literally just everybody gathers together and we look at each other's cars and that was it?
That was pretty much it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then after, I think about 3 or 4 years, we decided that people were starting to come from further distances, so we thought we'd better make it more worthwhile, so we made it into a 2-day event, and then we would have, on Saturday, we'd have a cruise somewhere, and then Saturday night, we were actually doing our own catering, and I think the last year we did catering, we did 770 meals. And after the show, all the volunteers were ready to kill each other. And I thought,
Yeah.
no, this is not happening again. So then we got contractors in to do that. Yeah.
Was it just word of mouth?
Yeah,
a little
basically
bit
word
in
of
those
mouth
first
then.
years?
Yeah.
Because I mean, again, it would be one of those things. I love to kind of tap into this kind of thought of what you would feel like if somebody told you in the early 90s that you would be dealing with an event this size by 2024. You would just be so horrified and blown away by the amount of work. But organically, it just
it's
built
just
up.
Grown at enough rate. The thing we do every year is after the show, we wait a week or two. Everyone calms down and gets rested up, and then we'll pull the show apart in a meeting and say, well, this was good, this worked, and this didn't work, and then how are we going to fix it for next year, and then that gets written down, and then we just keep tinkering, and we've never stopped tinkering. Even next year we'll be tinkering again next year.
Yeah.
Even though it ran very smoothly this year, there's always little things you can improve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those that haven't experienced it, it's really an extravaganza. It's a car extravaganza. I mean, there's no other way of saying it. There's upwards of 600? No, more. There's more.
930.
930.
Yeah.
It's just, that's mind-boggling to think of 930 cars, and the impact that has on Albury Wodonga in terms of the amount of money that it brings to the region. It's extraordinary.
Pretty much basically books Albury Wodonga out for the weekend. Yeah. So a lot of money coming into town, but it's not just the entrances. I can just thinking back a couple of years ago, I bumped into a crew of 6 that had flown over from Perth. Never been with their cars, but they were flying over there, and there's a group come out from New Zealand every year as well.
When was the moment or the year that you just thought, hang on a second, like this is getting crazy big? Like, was there a particular year when you knew that something crazy was happening?
Oh, well, probably 2 years ago after COVID, went to 960 that year, and it was like jumped 80, 90 cars, I think, that year. And it was we actually had to sit down and think, well, this is as much as we can handle. We're going to have to cap it at 1,000 cars, which we have done.
Yeah. Because
there's not enough physical space there at Gateway Lakes, and just so many people you got to deal with. Dealing with people and making sure everything's running smooth. You don't want to drop your standard off.
Yeah. How many people are in the club?
There's about 60 now.
60 people.
Yeah.
And so all of it, it's basically just do you bring people in to help you run it in terms of the ideas and things, or is it all just self-generated?
There's 3 local fire brigades help us, and without them there's just no way we can run that event whatsoever. And they're terrific. They are just fantastic. They mark the grounds out, and they handle all the traffic, and they look after the place after hours. And this year we donated 18,000 towards the 3 local fire brigades.
Yeah.
And that's their fundraiser for the year, so they don't have to do chook raffles during the year or anything like that. They just they tell their members that this weekend is where you will be a volunteer helping out, basically. And I think we have sometimes 30 or 40 fireys on site.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And how much work do you all put in through the year?
We usually have takes a month to wind it up, and then maybe a couple of months off. And then during that time, we'll get the artwork organised for next year, and then we start again. But my wife Jenny does 3 hours a day for about 2 months beforehand, just registering all the entrants and that. A lot of data entry.
So all of this work through the years since the early 90s, plus your full-time work as well.
Yeah.
Why do you love it so much? Because I would imagine just that the sheer amount of effort on top of a full-time job.
Yeah, well, it was. Yeah, it is physically draining afterwards. You take a week or 2 to recover, but just the feedback and the sheer joy that you bring to people, and the reputation of the show is so high now. And just working with other club members, they're just phenomenal. They are just great people.
Yeah.
Not a heap of the ones that. There's probably half a dozen that sort of do pre-show a lot of work, and then a heap more come in on the weekend. Yeah, some club members you don't even see. that's except for that weekend, and they come in and help out, which is very rewarding and awesome.
Yeah. So while you were dabbling in the club and then building it up from the 90s, as I said, you were working full time. So after the apprenticeship and you're working 27 years, did you say it?
No, 8 years with Combat Chrysler, then Baker
Right.
Mitsubishi.
Yeah.
And then I did 14 years at Mars as well. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And
Have
then
you? Yep.
22 years with Petters
Yes.
suspension. Yeah.
Right. Still work full time?
No, finished now, retired now.
Yeah. So working at Petters, perfect. Again, working in an industry that you love. You would have dealt with a lot of great classic cars and stuff working at Petters.
Yeah, especially coming in there, you get to see a lot of good ideas and a lot of cars and meet a lot of characters, that's for sure. That was good,
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Would you change anything? Looking back, would you?
Not much. Yeah, not much at all. No.
Yeah.
Can't think of anything, but yeah.
Yeah. And looking forward, are you still going to play as big a part in the club as you possibly can?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. And let it keep going. Getting second and third generation people coming through now, that kids that used to come through with their parents, and now they're bringing cars along now, so that's always good to see.
Yeah.
We get social media now, like there's been about 5 videos made of the show, and that's just all great publicity, of course. The only thing I'd like to do is start getting some Americans out just to show them.
Yes.
Yeah. They have bigger shows, Chrysler shows. They'll go up to 3,000, but they don't have the variety.
Crikey.
Because we got American stuff and the Australian stuff.
Of course,
yeah.
Even a Sigma. I saw it. I was on a search for a Sigma a couple of years ago, and I did find one with it had those the big sunshade thing at the front, and it was it had those beautiful hubcaps that they sold in the original Sigma. And that was a thing of absolute beauty. Brown it was.
Yeah, I did my apprenticeship on those. Yeah,
did you?
They were, when they first come out, they were a huge success. They got they got things going again for Mitsubishi, and they were a great car. God, they were a good car.
Yeah.
And great to work on. That was the best thing about it.
Yeah.
I wish that could be said now.
Of course, and then it morphed into the Magna as well, and then Oh, it's just so sad. I think genuinely, I think it's really sad that we've lost our car industry, and I know it was always going to struggle, especially after that Button plan and they reduced the tariffs on imported cars. It was always going to struggle, but at the end of the day, for some reason, Australians decided we didn't want our classic sedans and we wanted the SUVs that everyone else had in the world, and by then...
Yeah. Well, interesting thing is the Sigma morphed into the Magna, and the early Magnas were, I have to say, were pretty ordinary, but the later ones were just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And we get a lot of old engineers coming over from Adelaide, and one of the engineers told me that towards the end, 1/3 of all Magnas made went to Saudi Arabia.
Really?
Yeah, and they had to have their quality control top level.
Wow, that's fascinating.
That's why they end up being such a good car.
Yeah. You were mentioning the brain drain, because it was literally thousands of people worked in our car industry,
engineers and everything.
And where do they go now?
Well, I had to find work elsewhere, or I retired. But just all those skills.
It's a huge shame, isn't it? A real shame. How much work do you put into your own personal cars? As well as, because I was thinking, you had your full-time work, you had your club, and you had your own personal
as
collection.
Much as I can get away with. The car I've got now, one of them I use mostly is, I've had it 32 years, so it's just keep nibbling away all the time at that.
Yeah. How much of an emotional connection do you have with your cars?
Well, it's interesting. Remember I was saying I sold a car to buy a house. That car turned up at the show this year, and I didn't think that I'd missed it as much. But anyway, the owner, the current owner, first thing he said to me is, not for sale. And then he said, do you want to sit in it? Anyway, I got in the car and I closed the door and I could smell the interior. And as soon as I'd done that, all the memories come back.
Yeah.
Oh.
What is it? Actually, now I've got you. This is perfect. That smell that old cars have, it's almost impossible to describe, but it's so ingrained in my nasal cavities of my brain, that smell from old 70s cars, especially in my case, like the old Falcons and Corollas that we used to have. What causes that?
It's a chemical coming out of the vinyls and the plastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's indescribable.
It is,
isn't it?
yes, but everyone would know from our age that would know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's funny, all those things that you kind of forget, but bring you right back. Things like the burning of the seatbelt buckle, you know, or the remember the cracks that they used to get on the dashboards?
Yeah.
I always used to remember those. Oh my God. Yeah, great times.
Yeah.
Terrible cars a lot of the time. Not the Chryslers necessarily, but some of those old ones that we were
you could have too much
around.
of a good thing on a long trip. You used to get pretty tired out, but anyway.
Yeah.
Because we all look back with rose-coloured glasses now, don't we?
Of course, that's right. So just thinking ahead, next kind of 5 or 10 years, will Chryslers on the Murray, you said you're capping it at 1,000, so would you expect it to basically be pretty familiar to people over the next 5 years,
I think
the way
so.
it'll be run?
Yeah, I think so. We're really pushing hard to have them all pre-enter. It just cuts down a lot of congestion as they come in the gate, and it makes it so much easier for our club members to get everything organised pre-hand.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, out of the 930 this year, there was about 870 that did that. So, it's taken years to get them to do that.
Yeah. Were you worried at all that, because COVID impacted so many different events in so many different ways, but a lot of them just fell by the wayside because of COVID? Did you ever have that fear that it would?
It was hard to get, and I think if anyone you talk to in a club, it was hard to get members going again. There's two things happened. A lot of people, they drifted away, but another good thing happened was a lot of people went into their shed and did projects that had been sitting there for years and years because they had the time and they couldn't go anywhere, and a lot of cars got finished up during COVID, so that was one good thing.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing for us was that COVID year was going to be the 50th anniversary of the Valiant Charger, and that would have been, I think we could have pushed nearly 1,500 cars that year. It would have been phenomenal.
Will you do that for special events? You know, I mean, you said to cap it at 1,000, but if there's something special...
I don't know whether there'd ever be an event as important as 50 years of the Charger.
Fair.
I think we missed the beauty there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, God, COVID. But it did come back stronger and better than ever, which is absolutely sensational. All right, I've got some quick fire questions to kind of wrap us up here. Favourite car of all time, Rod?
I have to go for Valiant Charger.
Is there any particular one that you always wanted?
Definitely the RT, of course.
Yeah. Is that now for those that might just vaguely recall it, is that the Hey Charger ad?
Yes.
That was the particular one. Yeah, that was a classic.
That was a huge one of the best advertisements of all time. Campaign.
Best engine configuration, V8.
Yeah, I'm now actually into all the late model Hemis, what they call Gen 3, the ones that are in the 300Cs. They are just phenomenally good engines. Oof.
Yeah.
They do everything. They give you good economy and good power, so the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And what colour, now when I think of those Chargers, I think they came up with some bloody cracker colours in the 70s, didn't they? But that bright orange.
Yeah, vitamin C.
Is that what?
Yeah. I've actually painted my ute that colour, and it just glows.
Yeah. Was there a kind of yellowy greeny one that I kind of remember as well? Got that?
One called Limelight.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's your colour? What's your absolute pick of the bunch colour?
I like the vitamin C, and I think in the RT Chargers I actually like the silver. It's real classy looking.
Yeah. Well, it's been brilliant talking to you about it. It's just it's something that is just we're so proud to have it. Frankly, to have an event of this stature and size. And what do you get from people in terms of the feedback? Like, especially the ones you were mentioning, someone coming over from Perth. What do they say about the event?
Oh, they're blown away. They're always surprised, and they always say how well organised it is. And that's great. That's what you want to hear. And you know yourself, if you go to an event and it's a dog's breakfast, you're not going back again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, and as I had a swap site vendor say to me one year, he said, it's it's their little ray of sunshine. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, this is the weekend where they can come here and be 18 again and not have to care about the world or what's going on or finances or or work. They just come here and have a good time and just relax.
Yeah. How much do you think it is about the actual car and how much is it about the emotions and the memories?
Oh, yeah, I think it's nearly 50-50. There's a lot of people here that only catch up once a year and they just like they're old friends again, long-time friends. So, yeah.
People don't understand that, do they?
No.
Especially people like us who have connections to machinery and cars and stuff, just how this inanimate object that objectively is just steel and metal and plastic and all the rest of it can have such a hold over our emotions.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. It's a great social weekend as well. So,
is it? I mean, I would imagine that you consider it your greatest achievement, like starting this and nurturing it and.
Well, being part of it, yeah. It's not I'm doing the talking, but I'm actually representing probably 10 or 15 really good club members that have done a lot of work over the years. That's for sure. Yeah. But very proud of that.
Yeah. And was your dad proud of what you managed to achieve with Chryslers on the Murray?
Yeah, he was. Very proud of that. Yeah. Used to keep all the little scraps in the paper and all that. Yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant. Well, to wrap us up, we have our traditional last few questions. Sweet or savoury, Rod?
I'd say savoury now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's traditional, isn't it? Not even a bit of vitamin C though, with the.
Yeah, plenty of that.
Now, in terms of recommendations, all right, what have you been watching? Anything or reading anything that could interest us, Rod?
That's funny you say that. I actually have people don't know this, but I have quite an interest in holistic health. Interesting.
Tell me more.
Oh, there's just so many things you can do away from mainstream. Personally, I think it's all been held back, but. Yeah, and it's just amazing how the body can self-heal and do things like that.
So do you watch a lot of kind of docos or things like that, or do you read a lot of material?
I'm reading a lot more now and watching docos. There's so much information out there now. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Was it motivated by any particular health challenges?
Yeah. It started off as gout, and then I didn't realise, but gout can turn into all sorts of things. And I wanted to get rid of. I was given tablets to help it, and that made it worse. So I need to go and find out for myself.
It can be such a difficult thing though, because there's just so much information, and it's so hard to discern, accurate stuff from
that is
being led down the garden path. Yeah. So, what would your advice be for people because really, I mean, obviously modern medicine does a fantastic job, but at the same time, like you alluded to there are tons of things that can affect us outside of the realm of the kind of mainstream. What would your advice be for people who are looking at that kind of material online?
Don't keep an open mind. There's all sorts of things. There's all sorts of therapies. You get back to Royal Rife and his frequency machines, and it's just a whole world out there of different healing processes. So keep your mind open, and it's hard to decipher what you think is good and what's rubbish, but
you have to use your judgment and kind of get second and third opinions online and stuff.
It's not just diet as well. There's just other things out there. Everything right up to spirituality. It just goes on and on. And the more you learn, the more you realise you don't know. Yeah. And the more there is out there. So interesting.
Would you believe in Brockie's polarizer?
There is a bit to that.
Do you remember that? So for those that might just twig something there. So Peter Brock
frequency
had it was crystals in a container.
Oh, there's a lot to crystals. Yes.
And he put it on the engine of the car. Yeah. And what was the idea behind it? It was
I think just to get atoms flowing the right way and positively way.
God, he copped a lot of flack for that.
Flack,
Remember how much flack he copped for it?
But there is actually something to that, for definitely. Frequency and. Just trying to think of the book that I just read. Sam Slim Sperling, he talks about all different technologies that they've translated from out of the pyramids.
Yeah.
It's just, it's
a whole
just,
realm, isn't there, of knowledge that we can often just block off because we're stuck in the mainstream. Yeah. Wow, that's really fascinating. Well, Rod, it's been terrific to talk to you and find out a little bit of your journey, and you started off with a bang about the Henty Machinery Field Days. I had no idea about that. Your dad was part of the organising committee there, and then, of course, chatting about such a wonderful event that you and the other members of the Albury Wodonga Chrysler Club have started and nurtured over the decades, the Chryslers on the Murray event, which I believe will be 32nd. Am I in the run?
32nd
next year?
Yeah, I think that's right.
32nd, and it'll be another absolute belter early next year. Rod Taylor, president of the Albury Wodonga Chrysler Club, thank you so much for sharing your journey, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No worries at all. Thank you for having me.